Perhaps there is no empire so iconic in which wheat played such a big role as ancient Egypt. Wheat was at the center of both the rise of the Egyptian empire and its eventual downfall. Evidence of wild grain harvesting along the vast Nile River, including the use of sickles and grinding stones to harvest and process wheat, stretches back at least to the Mesolithic period between 18,000 and 15,000 BC. As the years advanced and the Egyptian empire grew, it was largely fueled by wheat, along with barley, as both were staples of the Egyptian diet. Bread and beer served many roles in society, from a major form of sustenance to a fundamental ingredient in medicinal remedies, a form of compensation, and even an offering to the gods. Barley and wheat thus played an indispensable role in building the empire and ensuring the survival of the Egyptian people. The geography of the area was ideal for agriculture to flourish, and the Nile River lent itself to the bountiful cultivation of grains. The annual floods from the Nile provided both fertilization and irrigation, as the floods deposited nutrients into the surrounding soils, and the Nile was also diverted into channels for irrigation of the land. Thanks to microscopic evidence from ancient Egyptian archaeological remains, we know their methods of processing barley and wheat into beer and bread were highly sophisticated. Due to the arid Egyptian climate, a vast record of organic materials has been preserved, including loaves of bread over 5,000 years old. Through studying these materials, Egyptologists have discovered that ancient Egyptian bread and beer were a far cry from the bread and beer we enjoy today. The beer of ancient Egypt was brewed using a unique fermentation process, and they produced many varieties which had a high nutrient value, including high amounts of protein and soluble fiber, along with vitamins from the yeast. Their bread came in a variety of shapes and sizes, but was generally rather coarse and far more dense than the spongy textured bread available to us now. As with the beer, bread from this era was more nutrient dense, a stark contrast to the mostly empty calories contained in the packaged breads mass-produced in our modern era. In addition to being an essential part of daily meals for everyone from peasants all the way up to the pharaoh himself, bread and beer also formed the basis of a complex bartering economy, making them one of the earliest forms of currency. Workers' wages were often paid in bread and beer, and commodities were often valued in relation to loaves of bread or measures of grain. Though we couldn't conceive of it today, wheat actually served as an economic yardstick in their otherwise moneyless economy, allowing commerce to flourish. The spiritual significance of wheat was also front and center in the Egyptian people's religious beliefs. Osiris was one of the most worshipped gods and embodied agriculture. In fact, the cycles of agriculture were thought to mirror their beliefs about the life cycle of Osiris. The annual cycle of flood, planting, harvest, and fallow was thought to represent the birth, growth, death, dismemberment, burial, and resurrection of the god. Sadly, this sacred cycle was eventually disrupted, proving to be catastrophic, and the great famine that felled the mighty empire of Egypt around 2180 BC left desperation, hopelessness, and outright madness in its wake as the population struggled to stay alive through it all. A sudden and unexpected reduction in the annual flooding of the Nile came upon the land, due to a change in climate that pushed the African monsoon southwards out of Ethiopia. This alteration of such a key piece of agriculture and wheat cultivation caused so much damage over 2 to 3 decades that Egypt's food supplies were decimated, and starvation spread across the land like a malignant cancer. Famine gripped old Egypt and strangled her, paralyzing political institutions and leaving the land lawless as desperate citizens resorted to murder and cannibalism in an attempt to survive. This chilling record, written by a sage named Ipuwer, puts the terror of that era into perspective. Lo, the desert claims the land. Towns are ravaged. Upper Egypt became a wasteland. Lo, everyone's hair has fallen out. Lo, great and small say, I wish I were dead. Lo, children of nobles are dashed against walls. Infants are put on high ground. Food is lacking. Wearers of fine linen are beaten with sticks. Ladies suffer like maidservants. Lo, those who were entombed are cast on high grounds. Men stir up strife unopposed. Groaning is throughout the land, mingled with laments. See now, the land deprived of kingship. What the pyramid hid is empty. The people are diminished. As horrible as this famine is to imagine, it is far from a thing of the past, as an estimated 9 million people die of hunger every year in the world today. With the recent invasion of Ukraine, the 5th largest grain exporting country in the world, by Russia, the biggest grain exporting country in the world, this may put global food supplies in a precarious position in the years ahead. Commodity Culture is a series on commodities and natural resources. If you would like to see more, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification so you're always up to date with the latest episodes.